your notebooks to a place where you were writing down some business yesterday. How did I ruin it? Fun in class activity. I need somebody to summarize. What are we even talking about? Main points that you took from class yesterday concerning how to do summaries. So in your own words, you don't need to raise your hand, just blurt them out whenever you have a thought. Summarize an important thing to note from yesterday. What? Yeah.
Put yourself in other shoes.
Put yourself in other shoes. What does that mean, Eve?
It means take time to think about the other's opinion while you still have your own. Like, think about what it would be like to be another person.
Okay. And what did you say, Jeff?
Don't be biased.
Don't be biased. So when you're summarizing somebody's argument, those two things work in tandem. You need to see the perspective from their point of view. And when you're summarizing their argument, you summarize their argument on their own merits. You do not try to subvert whatever it is they're trying to say. You respond to it, and you can certainly disagree with it and discuss why it's wrong. Yeah, exactly. It's not fair.
Summarize it in a way so that it fits your agenda.
Another main important point. When I'm summarizing stuff, I'm not just summarizing any old argument. I select the argument based on what my response is going to be. So if I'm using the Zinchenko paper to write an essay about parenting, I'm going to summarize the argument Zinchenko makes about parenting and respond to those in kind. I'm not going to do random stuff. If I am going to use an essay about Jet being a terrible human being,
Makes sense.
what is the argument I'm going to make be? Or what is the argument I'm going to make? He's a what? I'm using an article. They say Jet's a terrible person. I'm going to say
that he's awesome.
yes. Let's say that I am crafting an argument about pretzels being the best snack food. What would be an argument I could use to enter into a conversation about pretzels being the best snack food?
Chips are better.
Chips are better. What were you going to say, Ms. Risto? Never mind. Okay, so you don't just randomly choose arguments. You have arguments that fit whatever it is you're going to talk about. One more big idea. So you have to be faithful. You can't just ding it. Be careful on what arguments you choose. What's one other big thought?
Know where it's going? Or does that fall?
That kind of fits. Yep, that fits the Johnson jam.
It has to interest you. Like to take their points that interest you and not fall.
What are some other?
You gotta try and keep it like short and sweet, so make sure that you're only hitting the main points and not basically paraphrasing.
Avoid these easy mistakes. Don't summarize too broadly. Don't try to summarize everything. Just summarize fully whatever it is that fits whatever you're going to talk about. All right. Today, we only got one thing we need to learn about. And it's this. The thing I just handed out to you. You use signal verbs that fit the action of what's happening. When you guys ice, I would imagine you often say so-and-so says when you're introducing a quote. We want to move away from using just says as the way to enter into whatever people are saying, and choose a verb that more appropriately reflects what the author is trying to accomplish. Okay, so instead of just saying she says or they believe, you can say so-and-so urges, so-and-so emphasizes, so-and-so complains about. So when you're using these signal verbs, and you have a bunch of them right here on the front of this piece of paper, you do a more accurate job of being a sophisticated writer and representing what people are saying. Consider the Declaration of Independence. The Declaration doesn't just say, what's a line from the Declaration of Independence?
We the people.
Hold these truths to be self-evident, right? Hey, the pursuit of happiness. The Declaration of Independence doesn't just say that. What is the Declaration of Independence doing? It proclaims, it declares, it protests, it exclaims, it asserts rights. So we want to be more intentional about the signal verbs that we choose to fit what's going on. So think about don't blame the eater for a second. What is Zinchenko doing that about the fast food industry contributing to obesity? He doesn't just say that the fast food industry contributes to obesity. He argues. Okay, great. What else could we put in there? Insists. Okay, insists and argues on the same kind of plane. Why are insists and argues better than says? Yeah, he's laying out an argument for why this is true. He's insisting that this is true. He doesn't just say, hey, maybe, kind of. He gives us 3 separate instances in which the fast food industry is contributing to obesity. So those would be much more appropriate words to use than says. Those of you who are CISing, this applies to this blue book essay that you're writing. When you're summarizing somebody else's argument that they're making, you don't want to just say so-and-so says. Use one of your signal verbs. On the back of this page, you'll see some delightful transitions to indicate cause, effect, conclusion, comparison, contrast. These are delightful words similar to intro phrases and coordinating conjunctions. These are phrases that you can use to show how ideas relate to one another.
So like a big thesaurus.
Right. It's like a thesaurus for academic phrases that can appear in your writing. So you want this and that other handout I gave to you earlier this week easily accessible so that you can consult these things if ever you become stuck. And then after some time, hopefully, you don't need to rely on them as much because it becomes part of who you are as a human being. All right, so thumbs up or thumbs down. Do we understand what signal verbs are and how to effectively deploy them? Okay, here's your homework for tomorrow. You are going to write 8 sentences. Those 8 sentences are going to be divided into 2 sets of 4. Okay, we're going to play the believing game. I mentioned this earlier. The believing game means what Jet and Eve were talking about in terms of not projecting bias on what you're summarizing. You summarize the argument on the merits of the argument. You don't necessarily indicate that it's right or wrong in the summary. So you're going to take an issue that you have thoughts about. You are going to write 4 sentences that summarize an argument that you do not agree with. You are going to write 4 sentences that summarize an argument that you do agree with. When you bring these summaries back tomorrow, I should not be able to tell which one you agree with and which one you agree with and which one you disagree with. So you can think about this in Packer Viking land. Write 4 sentences about why the Vikings are a good team. Write 4 sentences about why the Packers are a good team. I should not be able to tell which one you support. You can write 4 sentences about why the Vikings are a good team and 4 sentences that make an argument for why the Vikings are a bad team. So good and bad. I should not be able to tell which one is the one you agree with. Does that make sense? You can do it for anything. Vikings, Columbus, Mr. Lindenberg, walking tacos, Logan's stomach. Right, 4 sentences about why Logan's stomach was dispiriting during mindfulness. Right, 4 sentences about why Logan's stomach was helpful. We should not be able to tell the difference between the two. Now, the trick, make sure you're developing a singular argument with these 4 sentences. Because the trick of summary is that people just summarize a bunch of different arguments. You are taking a singular argument and developing that singular argument in 4 sentences here, and developing that singular argument in 4 sentences here. That's what I mean. I'm not going to say like the Vikings are good because they have a better quarterback. They are also good because they have a better just defense. They are also good because they have a better kicker. Those are 3 different arguments. I'm saying you got to just develop one. The Vikings are good because of this thing, and you have to talk about that thing for 4 sentences.
What couldn't your thing be like? The Vikings just have a better team.
Like, so just
You-
like McDonald's.
You want to try to be as specific with your argument as possible.
Like McDonald's is better than Burger King.
Okay, great. So you're going to write 4 sentences on one reason McDonald's is better than Burger King.
Like their burgers taste better.
So write 4 sentences about why McDonald's burgers
So they're
are.
not as greasy.
Yeah.
They taste better. They have enough cheese on
Yeah,
them.
just write 4 sentences that develops an argument about their burgers.
But then why would you write about Burger King?
Then you would write 4 sentences about Burger King being better than McDonald's.
Their fries are better.
So which one do you agree with?
Okay, like I'm just trying to get an idea.
So you would write 4 sentences about McDonald's being the best, and you could write 4 sentences about Burger King being the best. You know, one of those
So
positions
within those 4 sentences, you can talk about a burger, French fry, a drink.
I would prefer you talk about just one thing.
Okay, but then like if you. So then if I talk good about McDonald's burger, I can talk bad about the Burger King burger?
You can, yep, and I should not be able to tell which one you agree or disagree with.
But like, aren't you knowing like based off of like the size of it?
No, because you could be making like the argument that some people say Burger King is bad for these reasons, and then you could respond to that in kind. If you want an example of what this looks like, that little half sheet of paper I gave you yesterday, that's me summarizing an argument that Zinchenko is making about parenting. Okay, so you could use that as a model for 4 sentences that summarize an idea. And there's some extra half sheets up here. If you want to take those home, it's this first paragraph. Otherwise, it's linked on the Google Classroom. Hey, it's walking taco time. Logan, I don't like much school lunch, but walking tacos is one that I very much enjoy. If it's not walking tacos, I'm going to be a sad fella.
Walking tacos.
I'm pretty sure I saw one.
I miss